Okay, so this screencast is going to show you how to create total scores, so how to sum together all the items in your questionnaire, and how to calculate some basic descriptive statistics about your questionnaire. So that means Cronbach's alpha, some reliability statistics. And we're also going to highlight where you get the actual information about coding or scoring your questionnaire from. So before beginning this video, I'm going to assume that you've downloaded your data from Qualtrics and that you've cleaned it up and labeled it slightly. And what I mean by labeled it slightly, so here under the label column, you'll see a description of the actual item that your participants saw in Qualtrics. So for example, here, it's not wise to tell your secrets. I like to use clever manipulation to get my way, and so on. You can see here that this student has already labeled these items depending on what questionnaire they belong to. So in this case, these items belong to a questionnaire measure of the Dark Triad called the Short Dark Triad. You can see the reference for it over here. And the student has labeled the items, the questions, in a very sensible manner. Dark Triad 1, Dark Triad 2, all the way down to Dark Triad 27. So we know immediately that we have 27 questions in this questionnaire, and we know what each question is. We also know, if we click on values, how they're scored. So we know that 1 is strongly agree, all the way to 5, which is strongly disagree. So all of this information, which you will have entered into Qualtrics, is now available on your SPSS spreadsheet. Great. So now what? So in the original paper from which you obtained your questionnaire, somewhere in there it will have information about coding and scoring your data. So hopefully your original paper will have something like this, an appendix in which the questions are laid out very clearly. This isn't always the case. You might have to dig around a little bit in the results and the method. In this case, in the Short Dark Triad, we have this information to hand here in the appendix. Looking through the items, you can see that they're clustered together, so that Machiavellianism is here, and this is item 1 to 9. Okay, so assuming that the data were entered correctly into Qualtrics, it's not wise to tell your secrets. I like to use clever manipulation to get my way, all the way down to question 9. Most people can be manipulated. So we'll simply need to add together those 9 items in order to get a total score for Machiavellianism. If we look at narcissism, you'll see some of the items are slightly different. So some of the items have an R here at the end. So items 2, 6, and 8, or in our system, that'll be what, 11, 15, and 17, have this R at the end. The R means that they're reverse coded. So that means that we need to switch this around so that instead of 5 being strongly disagree, 1 is strongly disagree. So let me show you how to do that quickly in SPSS. So we want to go to transform, recode into different variables. Oops, I'll just move the dialog box up here. And what you'll see here are all your variables, and you can select the ones you want. So we want 9, so we want 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, select them all together, 11, 15, yeah, and 17. Okay, so remember, those are the ones highlighted here. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay. And we need to, so we're taking these original variables and we're transforming them into a slightly different variable. So we're going to name them something sensible like D3, 11, reversed. And here, if you want, you can label what you've done. So reversed score D3, 11. Click change, and then the variable, the new variable that you want to transform your old variable into will appear here. So you do the same for the others, D3, 15, R, change, D3, 17, oops, R, change. Great. So now you go to old and new values down here. Let me just pull the dialog box back up. And so what you want to do is, where you had a 1 previously, you now have a 5. Where you had a 2 previously, you now have a 4. This is really important. Even though the 3 doesn't change, you still need to include it, otherwise it will be coded as missing data for all of your variables. Where you had a 4 previously, it's now a 2. Where you had a 5 previously, it's now a 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Click continue, click OK. Oh, and SPSS is slowly updating. Now, if you're not sure on the logic of why we're reverse coding these items, or you don't quite understand how the 1 is becoming a 5 and so on and so forth, I'd strongly encourage you to revisit your Prada notes, so your second year research analysis and design notes, where we went over this in quite a lot of detail. So you'll see here that now that SPSS has finished recoding the data, we have D311 reversed, D315 reversed, and D317 reversed are new variables that have been created at the end of our list of variables. And if you go into the data view, you'll also be able to see these here. Okay, and so they look just like normal data, because basically they've just flipped the scale around. Good. Okay, so now we're going to see how to compute a total score for Machiavellianism and for narcissism. So for this, we're going to go back to the transform menu and go to compute variable. Again, I'll just move the dialog box up here. So the first thing you need to do is name your target variable. Okay, so I'm going to call this Mac total. Okay, and we've seen here in the appendix for the short Dark Triad 3 that Machiavellianism is comprised of those 9 items, and because none of them are reverse coded, we know that we can just simply add the items up like this. So we've got Dark Triad 1 plus 2 plus 3 all the way along to item 9. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and we've called it Mac total, and we click OK. And just like we saw when we reverse coded those items, we've now got a new variable, which is total Machiavellian scores for every member of your data set. Okay, so what happens with an item where we have reverse scores? So again, transform compute variable, and this time we're creating narc total. Okay, and we know that that goes from 10 to 18, so 10 plus, but we've seen that number 2 on the narcissism scale, which is 11 in our data set, is reverse coded. So we need to use the reverse coded R, or the reverse coded labeled R item that we changed earlier. So we're just going to add that reverse coded item. And then we go back, so we completely ignore the original item. We add 12, 13, 14 as normal. And we know that our item 15, or narcissism 6, is also reverse coded. So we scroll down and we add that one. Oh, missed a plus sign, we'll just add that in there. Okay. Add 16. Again, add the reverse coded 17, because this is reverse coded. And then finally 18. Click OK. And you see here, again, we've got a total score for narcissism for all of our participants. You might notice here that we're missing a data point here. I'm not sure why that is. Potentially this person has skipped one of the questions on narcissism. Yeah, you can see it here. So it looks as though they probably made an error and accidentally skipped one. So depending on your data set, we would talk about either imputing a score there or removing that participant from the data set. We're not going to worry about that right now. So next thing you need to do after you've collected or computed your total scores for each of your subscales is to calculate the reliability statistics for your data set. And I'm actually going to make a separate video about that. So in summary, we've calculated total scores for Machiavellianism and narcissism. And I've also shown you guys how to reverse your scores using SPSS. I hope that's helpful.